us. Oh, we have Maggie Hampton with us, and she will, be giving a presentation. If you have any questions, please feel free to put them in our Zoom link, or you can put it in our comment section. Um, I don't know if Maggie will, pause during the training session, and you can ask your questions, or we can hold on to them and at the end. Okay. So without further ado, Maggie, I will turn it over to you, and we're very excited to have you here. Thank you again for being here.
Thanks, Michelle, and thanks everybody for joining today to learn a little bit about avoiding the summer slide. Like Michelle said, my name's Maggie Hampton. I'm going to go ahead and get my slides pulled up here, and I'm going to park at this slide for just a moment because it has an additional QR code for you. So if you would like to pull up the slides from the presentation today, you can click on that QR code and there are links to get you plugged into some different kinds of summer activities to do with your family. So I will come back to this slide with the QR code at the very end, but I want to make sure that you guys are able to um, get plugged into some of the resources today. Now, we are meeting in Indiana. So I'd love to, meet people wherever they are at around the state, but not knowing what corner of the state you guys are all from, I try to pull up stuff anywhere that you are at in Indiana. You should be able to utilize the programs today. However, if you are, I'm not on the Facebook side, but if you're on the Facebook side and you want to share in the chat maybe some ideas from your local community, that'd be a really great way to share ideas with everybody else. Oh, I see. Is my screen still up, Michelle? It changed on the
Yep.
Zoom.
No, it says how to avoid the summer slide, and you have the QR code there. So you're good.
Okay, good. Just
Yep.
wanted to make sure. All right. Well,
Yep.
I'm
I'll
going to
let
move
you know
on from that.
if anything changes.
Good, thanks. All right. So, like I said, I'll come back to that if you need to scan that at the end. But, like we said before, my name's Maggie Hampton. I work at the Department of Education's Office of Special Education as a technical assistance specialist, which means that my role here is really to connect schools and also parents with resources and support. So, InSource does such a great job of supporting parents, but we like to partner with them through office hours and things like that, like this. All right, so here's some of the things that we're going to chat about today. We're going to talk about what is the summer slide. So if you're joining this session and you are not quite sure what that is exactly, we'll talk about the summer slide and what that is. And then I want to give you tips today to turn that summer slide into a summer stride. I always want to make sure we take time for questions if you have them and resources. So I'm going to lean on my in-source friends here to communicate with me if there's questions on Facebook Live because I'm not sure how I'll see those. But if you are, I don't know if anybody's in the Zoom meeting, but you are welcome to also ask questions there, and we can make sure we address those. So if you've got questions throughout the presentation, definitely ask. If not, we'll have time at the end. And then there will be resources all throughout the presentations, but we will end with giving you guys some final resources for the day. Okay, so with summer just right around the corner again, and you as parents might be beginning to plan for your kiddos' days without that school schedule of things to do, right? So your kids might be thinking about days with family and friends, and all of the freedom that a non-school day has. Being with their friends and family. But there are some non-academic summers that can kind of take place sometimes where there's no academics involved throughout that several week period. And that can sometimes cause students at any grade level to regress in their academic skills. So that is kind of what we're talking about with the summer slide, because summer break is a really great time for kids to relax and have fun, but it can lead to learning loss if there is no academic activity happening at all. And that is what that summer learning loss is what we refer to as the summer slide. So there's been some studies out there, and what they find with researchers is that students can experience a decline in their academic skills when they're not in school. It can happen. In fact, some kids lose an average of about 2 months in just their reading achievement over the summer, which can cause them to fall over time almost 3 grade levels by the time they reach fifth grade. As our kiddos start to begin learning how to read, if they don't practice those skills over the summer, they can lose some of those skills, which adds up over time. So think about that. Think about, we're just talking about a half hour to an hour set aside every day in the summer can really help our kiddos close those learning gaps and make sure that they're performing at higher levels during the upcoming school year. Summer is a really great time for students of all ages to strengthen those academic skills while still having plenty of time left over for summer activities. Talking about this, I'm a mama of a neurodivergent family. So I've got my son will be finishing off his sophomore year this year, and my daughter will be finishing up her fifth grade year this year. But this is something that I've been thinking about with my own kids as far as how can I encourage them to have fun, to relax, go do things that they enjoy, but also at the same time, how can we build in some academic activity to make sure that they don't lose all the skills they worked really hard to achieve through the year. So let's talk about that impact of the summer slide here. This slide just gives a couple of the impacts of that summer slide. So the first thing that we see is that students are most affected are those kids that are typically in grades 3 through 8. There's a lot of skill building in that time period when kids are in third through eighth grade. They're working on building their core academic skills. So even those short breaks can kind of make a noticeable difference in their progress. At this age, thinking that elementary school, they're really trying to make sure that those reading skills are solidified, and math. Think about if you've been working with your kids on memorizing their multiplication tables, and then you take a week or two off from it, and then come back to it. It might be harder for them to remember some of those math facts. So those are just some things to think about. On average, we see that test scores, they tend to flatten or even decline over the summer months. So right now is the testing window for statewide assessment. So if your student participates in iLearn, they might be taking that right about now. But then when they come back at the beginning of the school year, they will take those tests again. We will see some students where they scored higher at the end of the school year than they do at the beginning of the next school year. And we often see that in math. That is where we see the biggest losses. While reading does tend to be more stable, but both math and reading are affected when we don't practice those skills over the summer or over those longer breaks. We're talking about summer today, as we're getting ready to roll into May, but we can think about these same kind of ideas over longer breaks, like if you have a 2-week fall break, spring break, Christmas break, those kinds of things. So, another key point to think about is that learning rates become more variable during the summer than during the school year. Some kids learn at a slower rate over the summer than the school year, while some kids maybe are able to learn a little bit quicker independently over the summer. So, some kids can continue to grow while others maybe don't, but maybe we're working on just maintaining the skills that were learned over the school year. Regardless of what it is, really, we want to meet our kiddos where they're at. So understanding these patterns helps us think intentionally about how to support our own kids during summer break. Okay, just continuing with that impact of the summer slide, this page highlights two long-term concerns linked to summer learning loss. So, according to the National Summer Learning Association, by the time students reach fifth grade, those repeated summer setbacks can accumulate, what we talked about before. And low income students in particular, those losses can add up to as much as 2.5 to 3 years behind their peers. And that just shows how significant that cumulative effect is of summer learning gaps that are happening over time. And then second, those early academic gaps often carry forward into later schooling years. So, that you might have some gaps in elementary school, but if we don't fill those gaps in by the time they go to middle school, then those gaps will be even more prevalent. So, students who fall behind during the summer, they are statistically less likely to graduate from high school and pursue college if that gap continues to widen. Um, so, those concerns kind of help explain why addressing this summer learning loss is just so critical, especially for students who already might face some barriers to academic progress. So let's take a look at what that might look like. This is an example on this slide of the summer slide. Okay, so I'm gonna explain what this means just a little bit. I'm gonna look off to the side so I can see my big screen here. All right, but you see right here, this is a fall, mid-year, and end-of-year test. So maybe thinking about iLearn. Okay, and in the fall, when the school year started, this student took their iLearn, let's say, or their other standardized test, and they scored a 130. And then in the middle of the school year, maybe right before Christmas break, they took that math test again and they scored a 180. So they grew about 50 points from the work that they had done and the skills that they learned between the middle of the school year and then Christmas break. And then at the end of the school year, right around nowish, students are taking their end of year assessments. That student grew again another 30 points and scored a 210. That's great. This student is just on the upward trajectory all year long, and then they take the summer off and maybe have not practiced any math skills over the summer. When they come back at the beginning of the school year, they score a 150. Now, when we look year to year, we see fall last year we were at 130 and fall this year we're at 150. So we do see growth, but it really does take away from the growth that that student experienced last year. They scored higher than a 150 at Christmas break last year, and now we're building those skills again. Similarly, in the fall of 2024, this student on their ELA assessment, they scored a 150. And then right before break, they scored a 200, so they went up 50 points there. And then another 30 points here. At the end of the year, they scored a 230. Okay. But then they go through the summer, maybe they don't practice their reading skills or have any kind of interaction with reading. And then they come back in the fall and they scored a 170, which again is still higher than their beginning of the year last year, but it really does take away from all of the learning that they did in that year prior. So this student had that positive growth from fall to winter to spring, but then it dropped during the summer. And it's like we're starting not all the way over, but almost. We're getting kind of close back to that beginning score. So now let's look at the other option. Okay. Summer stride is going to be kind of what we are looking for. As a parent, you are in the ideal position to help your kiddos stride forward during the summer months. You know your kiddos best, and you can help turn their interests into some powerful learning moments through the time you have together. And with the right approach, summer can become a time for that academic growth, maybe some confidence building in some skills that they have, but they don't feel quite confident in. So that is really what we're hoping for over the summer, is that students are growing or maintaining their skills. So let's look at an example of that. I'm going to look off to the side again on my bigger screen. So here in the fall, this student, same scores, mid-year, spring. We're just going to focus on math for a minute. So we went from a 130 to right before Christmas break, a 180, growing up 50 points. And then between winter and the end of the school year, we went up another 30 points to 210. Okay. And then with some practice on some math skills, maybe some review of some basic concepts, that student was able to maintain the learning that they did over that school year and come back. And at the beginning of the school year, they were able to score a 240. So we're moving up from the skills that we already had, and we're increasing our score in the following school year. Similarly with ELA, we went from a 150 at the beginning of the previous year to a 200 right before break, and then a 230, jumping another 30 points by the end of the school year, and working on reading skills. Maybe your student is doing some writing practice, some journaling, really making that reading and writing happen over the summer. That student was able to jump another 30 points between the end of the last school year and the beginning of the next school year. And that is what we are hoping to see, is that even if the skills or the scores don't increase the following year, we at least would like to see them maintain their scores from spring to fall, so that we are continuing on from where we left off rather than recuperating the skills that the student maybe already learned. So, I wanna give you guys some tips. Like I said, I'm a mom of 2 kiddos that I always try to make sure we have some activities to do over the summer, but I also wanna keep their needs, their strengths, and especially their interests in mind. So, let's just look at some activities that you can do as a family to turn your summer slide into a summer stride. Lots of different suggestions on these following slides, and not all of them are going to work for everyone, but that's okay. The idea here is to find activities that inspire learning for your kiddo. You want to inspire creativity. You want to engage your child in fun activities that they enjoy. And you have other summer plans that we want to work around and build into. Thinking about my family, my kiddos have summer sports. We've got vacations planned. We've got a driver's ed in there. We've got other things. So, none of these activities on the following slide should take a whole lot of preparation or planning time for you, which is nice because you have other things to do too. So, first thing here is that if your student has been invited to participate in a summer school or a summer learning program through your local school, use that support. If there are local camps that your student maybe is interested in, use that too. Otherwise, you can check out your local community centers, colleges that are maybe nearby to you, and also libraries also have interactive summer learning programs. I know my local library has a wonderful summer learning program. Sometimes they have kickoff parties where the kids can get signed up if they don't have a library card yet. And, there's all kinds of different opportunities for them depending on where you're at to earn, different food or maybe movie tickets, baseball tickets, all kinds of different things, just depending on where you're at and what your library is able to kind of pull together. But those summer learning programs, no matter if they're at a camp or at a summer school, they are there to keep students active and engaged during summer break, all while learning something. Um, Oftentimes, you'll see themed activities and teamwork opportunities. There's oftentimes supporting learning environments that equip our students with those critical thinking skills we want them to be learning. And hopefully that'll help prepare them for the upcoming school year. Sometimes these camps and programs can get pricey, but many of them offer scholarships. So start looking for those scholarship opportunities early, looking at them now, making sure that those scholarship spots don't run out and that you can get approved and enrolled. There are several different kind of summer camps out there specifically for students with disabilities, but if you are maybe enrolling in a summer program not geared specifically towards students with disabilities, reach out to them and make sure that program knows how to support your student adequately so that they have the best time while they're interacting. All right. Other than summer programs at camps and colleges, things like that. Um, and Jill, I didn't put specific information about summer camps in here because I'm not sure where people are joining us from. But I would encourage a good Google, or indiewithkids.com is another website where they have all kinds of different summer camps in different areas around the state. So you could kind of look at some of those resources. Or if parents have some ideas, you can share those in the chat. Thinking about if you are near, one of the suggestions I gave was a college. If you're near IU or IUPUI, Huntington College, I know that those have summer camps because my kids have participated in them, but I expect that lots of other colleges have summer camp programs as well. Um, yeah, lots of different things out there. It just kind of depends on where you're from in the state. So be sharing those out, parents, if you've got good ideas in the chat. So thinking about reading is the next thing. Before I was a special educator, I was a language arts teacher. So my biggest thing for my kiddos is even if they are not solid readers, along with where their neurotypical peers are. I want them to enjoy reading, and that is really my focus as a parent. Is we enjoy reading first, and then we build our skills with the love of reading behind that. So, um, with that in mind, understanding reading is a powerful tool that really nurtures things like imagination. It helps to build vocabulary and it boosts comprehension skills. So, by encouraging our kids to read during breaks, they can kind of stave off some of that summer learning loss and keep their minds sharp. So, reading helps expose kids to new ideas and different perspectives. I just love reading so much. So, I really hope that you can find some opportunities to encourage your kids to read over the summer. You can help your kids make reading a priority by being a reading role model and establishing a regular reading routine. So, if you as a family decide we're going to read together every night before we go to bed to wind down from screens and kind of get our bodies maybe rested a little bit, we're going to read 15 minutes together every day as a family. Maybe that's your routine. Or maybe after lunchtime in the summer, you've decided that that's a good time to take your books to a certain, park or something like that that's close by and read. But build in a regular reading routine so your kids know we're going to read every day. Visit those local libraries regularly and choose books that interest your child. If you're not sure, I can tell you my son is he, as a high schooler and even as a middle schooler, he has been a reluctant reader. It's been hard to find books that interest him, and my local librarians have been such angels for us here because they know so much more about books than I ever could. So many different topics, so many different genres out there, new authors. They just have such a great way of finding the books that can interest your child. So if you're not sure where to start, check in with your local librarian. Your schools also, maybe your teacher has a reading list of maybe recommended books for the next age group or for the age group that your child just finished. So you can ask them too. But the idea here is to just get some books in your kids' hands that they enjoy reading. If you are able to, you can create a reading space at home, or maybe you're going to library story times, things like that. If your student is deaf or hard of hearing, I know that our Indiana School for the Deaf does story time online, so you can join that as well. But I would also challenge your kiddos, especially if they are, enjoying reading, to challenge them to read something that maybe they have not read before. Maybe they've never read a nonfiction book, or maybe they've never read a biography before. Maybe they're usually reaching for fiction. So encourage them to read some nonfiction. Maybe your older kiddos can read with some of their younger siblings too, and that could be an option. There is reading bingo games online, and oh, I didn't link it here, but I will do that right after our session. I'm going to put this link in the chat since it's not in the slides, but I will get it there later. This is just a really quick bingo game for reading bingo to give your kid an incentive to read in a new, fun way. Um, Always, 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 audiobooks count towards reading. They are, listening to audiobooks is reading. And that can help your child with their reading comprehension skills. Um, and it can maybe also get your kiddo interested in reading if they really struggle. If your student uses audiobooks during the school year, then that might be something that you could incorporate into your home. You can find audiobooks on Libby and Overdrive through your local library, depending on if they have one app or my library has both of them. Also, YouTube has audiobooks, and if you are an Audible member, you can get audiobooks there. Spotify is another paid option that you can download audiobooks from. So there are options out there. One thing that my son used to really enjoy when he was learning to read and he was, breaking apart words to sound them out, and it's just those basic um, years of learning how to read. We did audiobooks combined with paper books so that he can listen and follow along. So that might be another option that's available to you. If your student is reading below grade level, maybe they're struggling to read too, you could read with your child as another option. You could you can get 2 copies of the same book and maybe you read back and forth. Maybe you're just passing back the same book or reading it together. But maybe they could read to you, and then when they need a break, you can read to them. You can help them decode words that maybe they're struggling with and kinda add in some of those fun voices just to make it a little bit more engaging. There's all kinds of different options here of ways to engage with reading. So I know I've talked about the local library a lot, but also um, I remember the Pizza Hut Book It program when I was a kid. I was really motivated by those personal pan pizzas. And if you were too, then maybe this is something that your kiddo would like to um, do this year. Pizza Hut, Barnes and Noble, and Half Price Books all have summer reading programs that parents can sign up their kids for. So I remember Book It used to be through your teachers, and they still do have a classroom option, but also as a parent, you can sign your child up for Book It in June, July, and August to earn personal pan pizzas. Barnes and Noble, you earn free books by reading. If you read and complete books, then you are able to earn free books at Barnes and Noble, and Half Price Books has a similar program. So you can click on those links, learn about those. Also, some places you can find books to read are over on this side. I when I do buy books, I often buy them local bookstores or even Goodwill. And when I find those books at Goodwill and I finish reading them, I try to find a little free library to drop it off if it's one that's not going to make my permanent collection. So look through those little free libraries, look through those local bookstores, but also if you have a kiddo ages 0 to 5, you can sign them up for the Dolly Parton Imagination Library and get free books mailed to your home. We also have another resource. It's called inlearninglab.com. Is got all kinds of different learning resources on there, and there's lessons to go along with all of the books in Dolly Parton's Imagination Library. So that's a really great way to interact with your youngest kiddos with reading. These are some other websites that you can go to. Unite for Literacy is a good one. Storytime Online, or I'm sorry, Storyline Online is a great website because there are famous actors and musicians, people that your kiddos might recognize who are reading books that they would enjoy. So that's a fun one. Reading Rainbow has books on their website as well. And I skipped over Inspire because this one I would like to just click on real quick and open up to show you today. So Inspire is it's got all kinds of stuff on here. So you can research, you can learn languages, you can read magazines, you can look at news and genealogy. There are research search engines, all kinds of things, but you can also see that there are some books available and you can look by grade. Okay, and this is a database that you can search for as well. So this is a great resource. This one right here was the K through 4 database. So if you've got a K through 4th grader and you want them to search for some things, this is a good place. I'm just going to get one of their popular topics, but you can see they can search basketball, and this would be all safe links that they could look through and read through to learn something new. Okay. You can also kind of come up here and search by subject. So there's lots of different options on the Inspire webpage, and this is free for anybody in Indiana. All right. So lots of different options for reading, but reading is not the only way and the only thing that students learn. So I just wanted to go through some other ideas here, thinking about hands-on learning. I don't know if you've ever watched your kid just sat back and watched them really meticulously stack blocks on top of each other, and then just watch them all fall down to the ground, and they just are determined to get that tower really tall. So they just start building up again, and they just have, they have that determination to make that block tower tall. I love that persistent spirit, and I love that drive to just understand how things work when I see it in my kiddos. And that really is kind of the essence of what STEM activities are. If you've heard about STEM, but you're not quite sure what it is, that's an acronym. It stands for science, technology, engineering, and math. And that's a concept that goes beyond construction and building blocks, but it's a journey into the worlds of science and technology, engineering, math, all interwoven a lot of times with the arts. So, in today's world where everything is changing, there's new challenges and new opportunities that just come out every day. Um, Fostering that love of learning in our kids and equipping them with practical problem solving skills is really important. And that is kind of what STEM is there for. So, I want to give you guys some ideas for some hands on learning activities and fun ways for kids to grasp those kinds of concepts. All right. So the best kinds of STEM activities often they rely on everyday materials. You might see very complex science experiments on TV, on YouTube, on different kinds of science web pages, but STEM is often just the everyday common objects that we're working with to kind of enhance creativity. So you can start with maybe a building bin for your kids or a STEM bin where you put in things like recyclables, think like your cardboard boxes or paper towel rolls. Um, Plastic bottles, newspaper, cereal boxes, things like that that students can or your kids can build with. My son was really big into building robots, so we were out there looking in junk drawers for Tic Tac containers and plastic cups and things like that that he could build with. But if you have a bin where you kind of put these things into as you're unloading groceries and breaking down boxes and things like that, you can add things to your building bin. Um, Also think about pantry staples, and you might not want to set these outside of your kitchen, but you can use things like marshmallows, toothpicks, gumdrops, uncooked pasta, baking soda, vinegar, cooking oil, all really the start of some really fun science projects. You can add in some craft supplies. If you're a crafty person, you might have a craft room, but I didn't. I just kind of put some of these in my building box. Things like popsicle sticks or pipe cleaners, rubber bands, string, tape, glue, construction paper, aluminum foil, buttons, Play-Doh. It'll be really good time when your kiddo comes home from their last day of school and maybe they have their art box. I bet a lot of that stuff can go right into your building bin. But you can also think about other things around the house like sponges, measuring spoons, measuring cups. If they have their own measuring spoons and measuring cups, they won't mess up the ones that you need to cook with. So you can have your own from maybe the Dollar Tree in your building box. Um, Also, things like flashlights, magnets. If your kid is responsible to handle scissors independently, maybe you put some scissors in there. So all kinds of things, but these are all, like I said, just basic household items that you can kind of build your starting kit with, and then that can help them just as openly as possible pursue those projects that align with their interests, like arts and crafts. But also, cooking together can be an opportunity to explore some math concepts and improve reading comprehension at the same time. You can work on reading and math when you're cooking, if you're following recipes, and that's also a fun way to connect with your kid. I love making stuff in the kitchen when they're interested in that. So some ideas on the slide here. This website, Science Buddies. This is another one I'm going to open up because they have lots of different ideas. I had one on the slide there that you could create oobleck if you ever have done that in the past. If there's a Dr. Seuss book about oobleck that you could read and you can make oobleck together. But these are all kinds of different, really basic science projects that you could do with your kids. So you can separate it out by the different areas of science. Maybe they're very interested in mammals. Maybe they're very interested in engineering. Maybe you want to break it out by a grade and see what is often available for kids of their age. But there's all kinds of different options. There are levels here so you can see how difficult it is. You can also separate it out by readily available materials so that you don't have to worry about going out to the store and buying, one random piece to make that science project work. So in here for third grade science projects, there are 241 that have readily available features or readily available materials. So that's pretty good. There's lots of different ideas in there. Oobleck is one of them. Also, there's a web page here called STEM Activities for Kids. I'm going to open this one up again. And this one was made for teachers, but all of these things are things that you could do at home and are free to download. So you click on this one's just called Fairy Tale STEM, and you'll see this website is called Teachers Pay Teachers. You can download this for free. And there are lessons about how this one is how to build a parachute for a little Lego guy, a minifigure. Okay. And then Emily's Science Lab. This is another web page you can go to with all kinds of fun experiments. These are all YouTube videos. But also, if you have Netflix, Emily's Wonder Lab is a show on there that you can also look at. And all of these, I'm not going to say all, but I'm going to say most of these, I was able to try these experiments with my kiddos without going to the store and buying anything, which was nice. Okay. Some other kind of art activities. If your kiddo is interested in art, Crayola has all kinds of different crafts on their web page that you can look through. There are coloring pages that you can print out, but that's not the extent of it. There is definitely more in there to do in the Crayola Crafts web page. This is 50 free short art activities. This is a art teacher's web page, but all of these you could do at home as well. Mo Willems, if you have a little that likes the book Don't Let the Pigeon Drive the Bus, Mo Willems is the author, and he did this series called Lunch Doodles with Mo Willems, where these are YouTube videos that he shows kids how to draw the animations in his children's books. So, kind of a fun option for you there. Um, if you want to cook with your kids, like I said, that was just a really enjoyable and fun way for me to connect with my kids over break. But also a way we can work on reading and math skills. So these are just some different web pages where you can find activities to cook with your kids. You don't want to, start out with making filet mignon or twice baked potatoes. So check out Accessible Chef is a really great web page with some different recipes and different ways that they bring out recipes so that you can find what works well for you. So these are just some options. I love that this is all nice, good visuals, nice, easy steps to follow. I love this web page. So this one's Accessible Chef, but there's some other good ones here too. All right. Okay, so we've talked about reading, we've talked about STEM. So now let's talk about some other specific skills. Thinking about your individual kiddo, you want to pinpoint those subjects that your child has had the most trouble learning over the previous school year and make sure to fit in some practice in those areas too. Summer is a really great time to just set aside 15 to 30 minutes a day for helping your student with that particular area of difficulty. So you can talk to your child's teacher, as we're wrapping up the year. What are some areas that they might suggest that you guys focus on? But also, when those iLearn scores come out, you can see where their proficiency falls there and what areas you might want to work on. So when you're looking at math skills when your kids are out of school, um, there's often, like we said in the beginning, there's that more pronounced decline in math skills compared to reading over the summer. And the best way to keep math skills sharp is to use math in everyday life. So think about cooking activities, shopping activities, playing games. I know one cooking activity that's not really cooking, but it did help with learning fractions was I put measuring cups in. I have just like like the plastic Tupperware cereal containers so nothing gets in the cereal, and I put measuring cups in there for the serving sizes. So then they were able to scoop out things like that, and we did that also with a couple other snacks around the house as we put measuring cups in there for the serving sizes so they could visualize that and have some hands-on knowledge about what those fractions were. Um, so we could also think about when you go shopping, playing games together. A lot of times board games will have some kind of math component, adding component, money component, something along those lines. And that will give your kids a chance to really continuously check their math knowledge, but also enable them to do it in a real world context. Working on just maybe even 3 or 4 math problems a day during the summer can really help prevent students from losing those math skills or from their math skills getting rusty, just a couple a day. So you could even look at it like a daily challenge that they need to complete or a daily to do on their calendar if you have a calendar of things that they need to do throughout the day. So you can purchase a math workbook. Like I said, I want to make sure that there are tons of free options, but there are workbooks that you can buy out there for maybe the grade that they just completed or the grade that they're getting ready to go into. But there's also free options like Khan Academy. Right here, Khan Academy, there are videos to kind of teach. As my son is in high school now, I am at the very edge of my math abilities. So I use Khan Academy to teach me how to do the assignments that I need to help my son with or to make sure that he understands. Khan Academy is completely free. But on top of those videos, there are practice opportunities. And so your kid can practice some of those math skills. And if they get it wrong, it kind of explains how to do it correctly. So that's an option. Um, like I said, just working on a few problems a day. More if you're on a roll, of course, but just a couple a day can help your kids close those gaps in their math skills, preserve what they learned over the previous school year, and prepare for that next school year. So I mentioned Khan Academy, but there's also websites like Zern and Mathopolis that you can try, and those have similar free lessons and practice opportunities. If your kiddo is younger and maybe they are working on fact fluency, whether it's adding or multiplying, you can use Extra Math as a great resource to just do a really quick multiplication check. You can also look on your look on your app store and you can download apps to practice facts. You can print out or buy flashcards. My flashcards are from the Dollar Tree, and I bought them when my son was in second grade, and we're still using them for my daughter. As we practice those math skills and the multiplication tables. Also thinking about things like counting money, reading clocks. These are skills. I know I don't carry cash everywhere I go, but having money every once in a while so that my kids can practice counting money, counting change, maybe paying for items that they would like to buy. That is really helpful to get that idea of money concepts. And then also reading clocks. I know we don't really think about that as a math skill, but reading a physical clock, an analog clock, understanding what those hands on the clock mean is a skill that is it's one that definitely needs to be practiced, and that is a great thing to practice at home. So, thinking about other skills, let's talk about writing skills. If you have your kids practice their writing, that is a great thing to do over the summer. Maybe you're focusing on your penmanship, or spelling longer words for maybe younger kiddos. Maybe tracing letters, working on sight words to practice their good handwriting. Those are all some options to do. You can get outside and use sidewalk chalk. If you're at a beach location, you can use the sand. Maybe you can pick up sticks. If you're at one of the state parks going on a hike, you can pick up some sticks to spell out words. Um, but practice writing over the summer. Your kids can also maybe write some short book reviews on their favorite books of the summer. Maybe you get them a journal and they can journal about different activities that they've done while they're out of school. I know a lot of times when you come back from school, the teacher might ask, "What did you guys do over summer break?" And if they've got a journal, they can pull out some really fun things rather than saying they don't remember. Creative writing is also another great way to improve your child's written language skills, while still giving them a fun and imaginative activity during the summer. Um, you could also have them write a creative paragraph every week if you'd like. So you can help with that by maybe choosing a topic or helping them come up with a topic, something vague like write about a family vacation, write about a special outing we did, write about a holiday memory. And that can kind of help with some of those writing skills. Um, this link right here from Paths to Literacy has all kinds of different summer journaling prompts. So if you don't want to come up with them, that's okay. Paths to Literacy did that for you. Also, I don't know if anybody had Mad Libs when they were younger, but Mad Libs are still out there. So if you want to practice grammar skills, you can click on the Mad Libs webpage right here and download some free ones. So that is practicing parts of speech and grammar. So making sure your kids know their nouns, their verbs, their prepositions, their pronouns, things like that. And it's also a really fun time as well. If you are headed out on vacation, you could have your kiddos write out a vacation packing list. If you're not going on vacation, everybody's probably going grocery shopping sometime over the summer. So have your kids help you write that grocery shopping list or work with you on that. Some other reading skills, kind of targeted reading skills, things that you can work on if you're practicing on those academic skills that your child is struggling with. Um, there's a word of the day, and then there's different vocabulary practice at vocab.com. So you can definitely check out that website and see. So you can choose from all kinds of different lists, no matter if your student is pre-K, getting ready to go to kindergarten, maybe they're getting ready to go off to college. There are vocabulary lists for them to study to help increase their vocab skills. And then Read Theory is another great free website where there are reading comprehension passages that your kiddo can read and then answer questions to practice that reading comprehension skill and answering questions over what they've read. Because reading for fun and reading books is wonderful, but having that skill to practice answering questions about what you read, you can do that through Read Theory. Okay. So we've talked a lot about academics, but one of the other major parts of summer parenting is figuring out the routine. Because while all kids do better with structure and routine, maybe you have a kiddo with anxiety or ADHD or autism who especially benefits from a dependable schedule and routine. Um, Without it, some kids are prone to anxiety or oppositional behaviors or tantrums because kids who thrive on predictability, they are more prone to have some of that anxiety regarding transitions. And maybe they benefit from a visual schedule that outlines what's going to happen through the day or through the week. So that means that we want to try to schedule some routines in our day and have some special activities planned out in advance, so we can keep our kids informed of what those are. When we make changes, just gradually build that routine to help your kids adapt if you're able to. Like if you are planning a getaway, maybe that can be difficult because there's a huge change in the environment and the routine of your day. So find ways to maybe mimic that in your home routine and environment where possible. I know a big one for my son is when we go on vacation, we are drivers in the Midwest, right? So we drive pretty far. We drive about 10 hours when we go on vacation in the summer to our cabin, and we leave very early in the morning and we are in the car for much of that traveling day. So I prepare my son for that, and we set our alarms a couple days ahead of time so he practices waking up at that early time that he's not used to. And then, kind of talking about going in the car, having some check-ins of where we're at in the car when we're going long places so that we can build that into our routine. Thinking about our sleep routine, sleep isn't just about rest, right? It is a very key part to your child's physical health, their social development. So we want to make sure that we have consistent sleep routines as much as possible in the summer. And I'm saying that as a parent who struggles with sleep routines in the summer. So these are some tips I'm taking for myself with my own kids this summer, because we know that consistent routines in sleeping help to regulate mood and behavior. Consistent sleep routines can help improve attention and memory. It can support immune health and promote healthy growth and brain development. All kinds of great reasons for good sleep. And those disrupted routines, even if they're just for a couple months in the summer, they can throw our kids' biological clock off and make that back to school transition harder to get up in the morning and get ready for school again. Um, our kids thrive on predictability. So having that solid routine, it signals their body and brain when it's time to wake up and when it's time to wind down, which hopefully leads to better, more deep and restorative sleep for your student. So, how are we going to do this? I'm going to do it, and you guys do it with me, and hopefully, we have very rested kids. We're going to set a regular bedtime as much as possible and keep screens out of your bedroom or sleeping areas if possible. Slowly start to move bedtime earlier, a couple weeks before school starts. If you've maybe gotten onto a later sleeping routine, kind of slowly start to adjust that back as school's getting ready to start again. Um, Also thinking about screen time, our tablets, our phones, our TVs, they all emit that blue light, which interferes with our production of melatonin. And that is the hormone that helps us feel sleepy. So try to avoid screens and video games about 30 minutes to an hour before bedtime. Check your kiddo and see how they're responding. But about 30 minutes to an hour before bedtime can help make sure that their brains can calm down properly. And I kind of mentioned this earlier, this is a great time to build in family reading time or another calming activity that you can do without screens. So, winding down before bedtime. Since we're talking about screen time, um, it's not just a distraction when students are on screens. It does stimulate the brain, but that can make it harder to relax. So if you need some help reducing screen time, you can use parental controls. Whether you have an iPhone or an Android, there are parental controls out there available for you to set some screen-free times where you can control that, or control specific apps maybe will help kind of reduce some screen time. Um, but also, you can set some screen-free zones. If you want to say the kitchen table is a screen-free zone, we're not having phones at the table, or another place that maybe is important to you to set a screen-free zone around. Also, thinking about modeling healthy behaviors as a parent. If we are expecting our kids to reduce their screen time, we can show them how we do that as well, how we put our phones maybe on the charger in a different room and then move about our day. So, that is something that we can do as parents and healthy role models. So we might need to ease into reducing screen time and encourage different screen-free activities. Get your kids outside playing, reading, doing arts and crafts with their building bucket. Maybe they're listening to podcasts. There's some really great kid-friendly podcasts out there where they're listening and they're not watching on a screen. Um, you could also set specific times for screens and video games to kind of help balance screen time with physical activity, with educational activity. Um, so think about that. And when you're thinking about the amount of time that a kid or maybe your teenager spends on screens, research tells us that they give us, it's called the Goldilocks hypothesis, right? So no specifics here, but they say research says that moderate amounts of screen time might be better than excessive amounts of screen time, also might be better than no screen time at all. There is definitive evidence that spending more than a few hours a day on screens can have a negative effect on our child's and teens' well being, not necessarily because what they're doing on the screens is harmful. They're not necessarily engaging in some harmful web activity, but because that level of screen activity is interfering with other key developmental tasks. We want to make sure there's a healthy balance between physical exercise, face-to-face time, screen time. We want our students to be with their friends and family in person. We want to give them activities that promote their learning. So having those clear digital boundaries kind of helps our kids to maintain that healthy balance and reduce some of those negative effects on attention and behavior. If you do have those parental controls, even if you are not using them to limit your child's screen time, if you maybe have an older teen that you're wanting to give them a little bit more responsibility, you can review the amount of time that they've been on their phone, or the amount of time that they've been in a particular app so that you guys can reflect together as you work to build some of those healthy habits. And then also throughout the year, discuss those tech expectations at home. What is your expectation for technology at home? What's the expectation of at school, so that your child knows what's expected of them, and they can ask some clarifying questions. Maybe it's a little confusing what the expectation is, and in some kind of fashion. Um, a lot of times also parents today are concerned about video chat, or I'm sorry, video game chat functions. So be aware of that with your kiddos. Chat features in those online games, they can be a place where cyberbullying and other predatory behavior occurs. So it's very important to teach our children about privacy settings while we're working on setting them up. We want to make sure that they know how to connect with friends and not strangers. And also, who do they talk to? How do they reach out for support? They should talk to, is it you? Is there somebody else that's maybe with them at home while you're working over the summer? But make sure that they know that they can come and talk to somebody, an adult, if they find themselves in a situation where they feel like they're being harassed or bullied in those spaces. We want our students and our kids, we want them to come to us when they have concerns. Um, Discuss those screen habits that promote your child's health and well being, like connecting with people that we know and limiting our usage. If your teen is using social media, maybe we want to talk to them about algorithms, because the longer your teen watches a certain video or a certain type of video, the more they peruse a certain type of content, then the more that content is going to be pushed into their feeds. And you guys could probably talk to some examples that you maybe have seen where you're talking about replacing the light in the kitchen, and then all of a sudden kitchen lights are all over your phone advertisements, so you can kind of tell them about some of that stuff. Also, false information is everywhere online, and it's important that we talk to our kiddos and make sure that we are teaching our teens to be critical consumers of what they read and watch online. So, building those skills over the summer will be helpful. Right. And learning doesn't always have to be at home or in the classroom. We can take our educational experiences out into our communities. There's all kinds of places in Indiana to learn. You can go to museums, science centers, historical landmarks, zoos. There's all kinds of places that offer really valuable opportunities for kids to ask questions and actively engage with the exhibits or the displays and really discuss what they learned. And the best part about that is that many of these places offer discounts for students or even free admission days, so groups can explore them without breaking the bank. I did want to try to find free things. You might have to pay for some of these sometimes, but there are often free days too. Go out there, connect with nature, and explore some environmental science by doing some outdoor education and summer learning programs. Our state parks in Indiana and our local parks departments have some really great programs out there, so check them out. Activities like gardening, hiking, camping, all of those teach our kids about ecosystems and sustainability and conservation. Kids can also participate in some different community service projects, maybe, and focus on the environmental stewardship or nurturing a sense of responsibility towards the natural world. So these are just some different options there. I did put the program schedules for the Indiana state parks. So no matter where you're at, there should be a state park that's close by to you in Indiana. But also, you could go out there and check out their hiking trails. Even if you're not doing a organized activity, there's all kinds of hiking trails and camping options for you in our Indiana state parks. Also, you can look and all over Indiana, there are historic sites, so you can find where those are here. And also, if you are maybe traveling outside of Indiana and want to find some historical places along your route or at your destination, you can look at this National Register of Historic Places database and find some historic landmarks wherever you're headed. Um, if you're gardening, I know we were talking about gardening right before the session started with insource. You know, you might have some frost that's come along recently, but it'll be time to plant soon. Purdue University offers these home gardening calendars, which are really great. And like I said, our focus today has been on getting ready for summer, but these gardening calendars go all year long. So in the winter, when I know that there's something that I should have done for my garden, you know, it'll tell me what to do here, and I don't have to worry about that. So that's a really great resource. I know a lot of local libraries have recently started, or maybe your local library has done it for a long time, but I've seen a lot of libraries in Indiana add seed banks to their resources where there are seeds that you can pick up or maybe drop off if you have some extras to donate, so that you can have some maybe free seeds. And then also there are lots of different public gardens throughout Indiana and a couple arboretums, I think is how you say it. I've visited one or two, and I'm still not sure how to say it. But there are places where you can visit some gardens or even gardening centers. They're just such a nice place to peruse around and look around. Okay. So really, I know that that was a lot, but I hope by participating in activities like these ones, your kiddo can make some big strides during summer break, maybe get ready for the next school year and be ready to succeed. So at this point, those are all the resources I had. I'm going to flip back to my slide one in case anybody needs to get that QR code, but I would love to answer questions if you have them.
Maggie, we haven't had any that have been posted out onto Facebook Live, but I just wanted to share some things that I'm old. So my baby is 29, but I wanted to share some things that, as a new grandma, he'll be 18 months
Yay.
old next month.
Oh, so
Anyway,
exciting.
so some of the things that I've been trying to incorporate, I belong to a farmer's market, so I have a business that I run on the side, and my husband and I have been participating for 5 years at the farmer's market, and every year I try to put some sort of a kit together for kids so that their parents can just come to the booth and just have kind of a ready-made kit that they have that they can purchase. And so I encourage everybody to, visit their local farmers markets because I'm not the only one that does that. I actually got the idea from another girl that when I first started the market, that's what she did. Um, and so, I mean, I've done kits from, having little succulents and having them with the pots and the dirt and everything all in a little box ready to go to having different sorts of bead kits for them. And so that's just kind of one of the things that I've done. Also, um, junk journals. It's a big popular thing right now to do is junk journals, but it teaches how to tear. It teaches them how to cut with scissors. It teaches them how to paste or, well, glue. Do they even call it paste anymore? But there's also in there, it teaches them places to write. And so it's just a really kind of neat, novel way to give the kids um, their own spin on their own journal. And so we've kind of put a couple of those even together for the kids. But when my son was little, one of the things that we did was in the summertime, he would pick a food or a meal or something, and we would write the recipes out. So what we did was we would take a video. Now, granted, again, this was, he's 29, so we weren't on, the technology end. I had a camera that I set up and we took a video and he would demonstrate how to do that recipe and he would write the recipe and that was his screen time was being
Yeah.
able to watch those videos. So we would make several videos of just different things that he would do and granted, again, he's 29, so screen time wasn't a big thing, but he loved Blue's Clues. And so we had to figure out a way to keep him from obsessing with Blue's Clues. Um, so those were just a couple things that we did whenever he was little. And I can't imagine that it would be too far out of date, to set your camera, your phone up and take a picture and do those things. But those were things that really kept our summer interesting. Um, because he's autistic, and he does have the tendency to obsess on things, and I had to be able to find things that um, would keep him from doing that. So those
Oh,
were just kind
yeah.
of some of the things that as I was sitting here, I'm thinking, oh yeah, we did that. Oh yeah, we did that. So thank you so much. You've given me so many good ideas now for my grandson. So thank you, Maggie. I
Yeah.
really, really appreciate that. We have not had anybody, we have several viewers on our Facebook Live, but nobody has popped in with anything out there as of yet.
Okay. Well, and that's okay. And thinking about those farmers markets, there are great farmers markets out there. I'm surprised. I'm kind of surprised at myself. I'm giving this presentation again at the office hours with InSource, so I'm going to add the farmers market on there. I know one. If you're in the central Indiana area, there's well, they have a storefront now, so I'm not sure if they'll do farmers market. But No Label at the Table is they are all people with disabilities that run a bakery there, and they always are out and about. And my son really loved to interact and go meet them, see what they had baked that week, and always buying something from them. But it's a great small environment with local businesses to support, where you can practice, those money skills if you're maybe having them pay for things or think about change. The farmers market is a great place, and those video skills, thinking about if you've got those kiddos that they want to be a YouTuber, have them make some YouTube videos. Even if you don't post them on YouTube, they can create them, they can work on editing them. There's all kinds of free software out there to kind of encourage them to achieve their YouTuber dreams. So those are great suggestions too. Thanks, Jill.
Yeah, and
We do have a, sorry, we do have
no,
a
go ahead,
comment
Michelle.
that popped up. It's from Peggy. She says, "Thank you. This was such an informative video. You covered a lot of useful information I can share with my grandchildren."
Oh, thanks, Peggy. I'm glad that you joined us today.
And I did want to tell you that I did put out on both platforms, I did put your link to the reading bingo. It is out there for
Oh,
them to be able to
good.
click on too.
Good. And I'll make sure that's in the slides. So if you take a QR code, I'll have that on there after we're done today too.
And the other thing I just wanted to mention was, you had mentioned the Purdue University. Um, Check your local um, areas, and like we have the Purdue University Extension here in Putnam County.
Mm.
So check your individual counties to see if you have that, because they do have a wealth of information. And there's a lot of times they're putting things on in the summertime for kids that I just stumble across because I have the Facebook page and things like that.
Yeah,
Mhm.
they have the 4-H fair information on there too for their counties.
Yes.
I love those. Like they have like livestock. They have about cats, dogs. I think all. I mean, they probably have a bunch more, but those are the ones that stood out to me. But I really like that the Purdue extensions. Those are really good.
Well, Maggie, again, just thank you so, so much. You are just a wealth of information. I cannot tell you how much I greatly appreciate you being here today. This was just fantastic. It really got my mind to going. And knowing that we're getting ready, I mean, we're close to summer. We are so close to summer. School's almost out. And there are so many things that we do need to be able to take advantage of. And, just even if you can get to the library and read, even if you can just get in there for a story time, that's, a different aspect on learning. And, everybody needs a break from that. but there's so many things that kids can do that they don't even realize that they are learning. So just take advantage of everything. um, but yeah, thank you. I greatly appreciate you being here. Michelle, did you have any other questions that had popped up on your side?
Nope, I don't see anything on our Facebook nor our chat.
Okay. Now, Maggie will be back here again next month. She will be back here, and her and Michelle are going to be on office hours, and you'll be presenting the Slimmer Slide here again.
Yeah.
So, those of you that maybe have missed it, please come back. And if you've maybe think of a question between now and then, or any tips or suggestions, please bring them. That will be on the last Tuesday of the month of May, and
Yeah.
that will be at noon. So please plan to attend that, and you can find out all of that information is on our website at insource.org. So yeah, but thank you again, Maggie, for being here. Michelle, do you
Yeah.
have
Thanks for
anything
having me.
else?
I do not. I think I just want to say thank you again, Maggie, for being here, for taking the time to do this with us. I think a lot of parents are. I was writing stuff down because I was like, I need to get all of this information for my kids. But, I love, taking them. My husband, he does like obstacle courses for them out in the yard. So
Oh,
we do like
fun.
math problems and spelling outside, and it's just, we got the energy out and then we got the mind going. So I really appreciate this information because, like, I saw, what was it called, on the YouTube, and I saw when you were showing it like these eggs, and I was like, I need to look
Yeah.
what that is. I need to see what that is. And so
That's
yeah,
a fun one. Yeah, it
yeah,
takes a couple days, but it like eats away the eggshell, but leaves the membrane, so it's like a bouncy
yeah,
egg. That's a fun one. And there's one to do in different colors too, so that like your
yeah.
egg turns pink or blue or whatever your food
Mm.
dye color is. So if you've got a couple days, that's a good science project for a couple days. Yeah.
Oh yeah. But yeah, thank you so much again. Like I really appreciate it. I mean, I have littles, and so I think all of that information and fun stuff to do is going to be fun for them. So thank you again.
Wonderful. Yes, thanks, ladies. Well, everybody have a good afternoon.
All
Thank you,
righty.
you
Well,
too.
thank you. We will see you next month again, Maggie. So thank you.
Yep.
Michelle, thank you for being my co host today. And everyone, have a wonderful afternoon.
You too. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.